Hey everybody, this is Val with NascardRadio, and as well as the amazing Jason. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing well today, Val. How are you?
Doing great. I'm super excited. On our hotline, we have our guest here today, Colin from Sports Card Radio. Colin, how are you today?
I'm good. Jason, Val, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to be here on the show. Happy 1 year anniversary with the podcast.
Thank you very much. Yes,
no problem.
I'm super excited to have you on. You know, we've been, I guess, chatting back and forth for years, and you had me on your show, and I kept on pushing, trying to get you to talk about NASCAR trading cards, and you wouldn't do it. So I had to take matters into my own hand and learn how to do the website, and had to learn how to do a podcast and doing images and put them up on the website and doing all that stuff. So because you wouldn't do it, I'm here today. So I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad my laziness has led to your podcast and your success. That is absolutely my pleasure.
But, you know, you've been doing the show for a long time. How long have you been?
This is our 12th, basically in our 12th year. I started it in the summer of 2008. So yeah, it's been a long time.
And I was trying to figure out how I found out about you guys, because it was kind of early on, and I think it was from the PSA message board. So back in 2005, and that I started to get back into the hobby, and I was collecting graded cards. And it was PSA, and I was a message board. And I think that's how I found you, because it was probably early on, so there was probably not, I don't know if you were doing Facebook ads or whatever, but it's been a long time.
It's been a long time, yeah. I can't say that I've done a lot of anything other than really put the show up. In the early days, I definitely was, like, pushing more for people to listen and posting links to the show and things like that. These days, I just kind of record them and put them up. And, you know, people find them, they find them. If not, you know, maybe they find them at another time. I know there's, you know, you got your podcast, there's the Hobby Hotline. There's lots of podcasts out there these days. And so I think it's great that, you know, when I started, I think I was one of the only ones or the only one. And now there's probably a dozen or so at least out there. And so it's great for the hobby. It's great for people, especially people that are enthusiastic about the hobby, new people, new collectors, or even the old-time collectors and dealers and things like that, to have that much information out there. So I've just, you know, for me, just being a small part of all that is kind of nice.
Yeah, you definitely had, you know, instrumental in helping a lot of folks that are, you know, doing the podcast and other forms of information, all right? Because information is kind of the key. I don't think you're not going to spend your hard-earned money if you're not good about the transaction. So, and you know, information is kind of the key to that.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And the more you can get, the better. And I think there's so many cards and so many sets and different parallels and different layers to the hobby that there's not going to be one definitive source, as maybe in some other hobbies that, you know, that aren't quite as intricate as trading cards. So it's nice to have, you know, different experts weigh in, you know, and I know you guys weigh in on NASCAR cards and racing cards, and, you know, that has, you know, that you almost need to be an expert to kind of weigh in. You can't just be a card guy and start weighing in on NASCAR, because the sport itself is so much different than basketball, football, baseball, and all the other ones. So it's nice that there's a diversity out there, and everybody kind of can kind of pick a lane and find something that kind of suits their fancy, I guess.
Definitely. You know, I noticed that, you know, over time, you know, things have changed. And I was talking to Jason before that, you know, your website used to have like a forum and stuff and all kinds of stuff. And then you had some really interesting guests and always had kind of the pull back the curtain of the hobby. And the only thing that comes to mind, one thing that comes to mind is I remember you were, I guess, talking to somebody at either Upper Deck or something about them having a cutting machine or whatever to cut cards there. I don't know if you remember that. And then also I guess it was, I don't know if it was during the recession there, about making your own baseball cards, where people were sharing. There was a gentleman that had images of, I guess, the players from spring training or whatever, but it was basically people were making their own baseball cards using those photos and using like a stock PowerShell. That's my IT background.
Photoshop.
What is the drawing? Yeah, thank you, Photoshop. So you've seen a lot here, being in the media, social media and everything. You've seen a lot here these last 12 years.
Oh, man, yeah. And, I mean, it goes back, further. I've been involved in the hobby as a collector kind of since 89, and then I started working at card shops in, and I think middle school and high school and a little bit of college. I was working at a card shop. And then I think I got my first wholesale license to sell cards when I was 21, 22, so that would have been right around year 2000. So I've been, it's changed so much from the licenses and the different companies kind of rotating in and out. I think Topps and Upper Deck are two of the only companies that really haven't actually like gone bankrupt and maybe changed hands a little bit. So it's been, and I can imagine the next 10, 15, 20 years is we're going to see even more change and more, everything's going to keep changing and evolving, not just from the company side, but from, like you said, the website has evolved over the years. And, I think that's the secret to success, I think, is you've got to constantly evolve, constantly change, not necessarily your core, kind of what you do at your core, but you always got to be willing to adapt and change, not necessarily year to year, but every few years there's new trends in whether it's sports cards or sharing or platforms you can be on to reach different collectors and stuff like that. So you always got to be willing to kind of meet the needs of kind of a new generation or a new age, whatever's going on. So yeah, always been pushing forward, but having fun at the same time. We've always done it and had fun. I wouldn't still be doing it if I wasn't having fun. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. And I know that we see, or I think that we are a lot alike. You don't really do it being selling cards or whatever as a business to try to make real money. You don't see Mark Cuban, those Alex Rodriguez or whoever, Derek Jeter. They're not. They've moved on from the sports and they're doing either as an owner or higher level to make more money than what you can in the card industry. So it's more of as a hobby, and if you're going to make money or put it in the market. I know you talk about the stocks and other stuff and how it relates a little bit to cards, but it doesn't. I think people maybe get confused, and I like how you kind of not necessarily pushing all of the investments of it. I don't know if you saw that Mike Trout sold for $90,000.
That's crazy.
And that was, I think it was last week or whatever it was, and I was thinking, man, how much Amazon stock could I buy with that? So,
yeah. Hey, I mean, if I had $90K to burn, maybe I would buy a baseball card, but I personally, I don't have that kind of money. I don't foresee myself having that kind of disposable income. I'm certainly not going to tell people what to buy with their money if they want to spend $90,000 on a baseball card. There's certainly worse things you probably could spend it on. But like you said, for me, it's like it's always been kind of a side income. Even when I was in college and stuff like that, it kind of paid. It was like beer money basically for me then. It certainly didn't pay for my college tuition or anything like that. And even today, I'm selling mainly sports card supplies, and I sell board games and things like that through a distributor. And it's a nice little side income, but am I going to get rich like Mark Cuban or those kind of guys? No, probably not. But you do learn a lot. Like you said, you kind of sports cards is like a bridge to, you can learn a lot from buying and selling trading cards. And, if you take that knowledge and apply it to something else, you can make quite a bit of money. I mean, sportscardradio.com was my main source of income for many years. And so while I wasn't buying and selling trading cards on it, and I wasn't selling anything on it, it literally supported me and my family for a very long period of time. And the lessons I learned there apply to other things that I've been doing. So it's, that's why I always encourage people just to always keep learning, keep collecting, stay in the hobby in some way. Everybody's financial situation kind of goes up and down, and certainly right now, your financial situation can kind of go up and down, and you can your interest can kind of wane depending on what's happening in the sporting world. But staying in the hobby does have some huge benefits, especially if you start to apply that to other things like maybe the stock market or another business or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
It is kind of funny how you always compare it to the stock market, and then we see events like The Last Dance, and then Jordan cards just shoot through the roof. And I think people don't want to say that it's stocks, but it very much is. I think that parallel is always going to be there, whether people want to admit it or not.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a great point, Jason. You know what it is it's like event driven, and
Yep.
if you could, and I wish I would have seen this. When they announced the Last Dance documentary, and it was probably this time last year or something, they might have announced it. That was the time to start, acquiring and building up a collection in Jordan to be able to foresee that. Now, I don't think a lot of people probably did that, but that's obviously something, you can foresee. And then obviously like Zion Williamson was a rookie or was in college last year. There was definitely people kind of foreseeing, hey, this guy's going to be big. I don't necessarily know how you could have capitalized on that, but the Jordan example is a really good one. When guys get elected to a Hall of Fame, and then maybe I think Jeter might be going in this year. So I've certainly been kind of like buying Jeters and kind of holding, not like really expensive ones, but, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, okay, he's going to go into the Hall of Fame. I know that's been kind of delayed with the events we've got going on now, but, those, like foreseeing events that are going to change the market in the future is exactly like the stock market. You can see, this company XYZ is going to be, dominating the market 12 months from now. And being able to foresee that is certainly a talent and takes some, a little bit of luck, but definitely your timing is almost identical to the stock market. Being able to time that transaction and have your prediction come to fruition in the right period of time, and then be able to capitalize on that, like people that might have Jordan or Scottie Pippen cards. I think next week is Dennis Rodman. All those cards are going to be wildly appreciating, especially because there's literally nothing else going on in the sporting world except for reliving the mid-'90s Bulls basketball team. So it's a really, really unique event, and certainly there are tons of parallels to the stock market. And I don't think I would – it's not like I'm some Warren Buffett or anything like that, but the discipline that I've learned in trading cards applies directly to the stock market and doing that for as long as I have been.
Yeah, Jason, I think, you kind of, and Colin, have it right where, I've noticed over all the years when a rookie breaks out, when somebody does something like a Cy Young or Rookie of the Year or home run record, then when they retire, there's another bump. When they get in the Hall of Fame, there's another bump. And unfortunately, when they pass away, there's another bump, and it kind of levels until there's some kind of other event. So, but when you were talking about the Bulls, I've seen it. I guess I saw it in the movie theater. They were talking about it. and it looked awesome, and I was like, maybe you think of the late 90s with Jordan, and then but I wasn't really sure about it. But if it's all about the different bulls, and I'm wondering the Jordans, because I did actually buy some stuff over the weekend for Jordan, which one of them was already flipped, and I made about 50% off my money. It was nothing major. I bought a 94 Fleer Flare. It was a nice looking card. I guess it was like $10, $11, and sold it for $18. So, it was two days, and it was in and out. But and I looked Rodman's high. I don't know about Pippen yet, but maybe this will pull the other guys up. Maybe Phil Jackson might be somebody to look at, and Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
You
know what I was thinking too is it might pull up everybody because as the Jordans go up, does that pull up Charles Barkley and Karl Malone and John Stockton and all these other guys that played in that era as well? That's the one thing. I don't think it's going to be a 50% kind of move, but it could be that the Jordans and the Pippins and the Rodmans and the other guys on the team, it pulls up the entire era of trading cards, which is probably slightly underappreciated in the hobby, and especially compared to baseball cards and maybe not football cards, but that whole era of cards could potentially see a bump because you see such growth, and I think that's happened. You see it in the current day. You see someone like Zion, his cards are worth X amount, so John Morant has to be worth something. Luka has to be worth this amount. Trae Young has to be worth, in a comparison, in relation to what those guys are selling for. And so it could be like a rising tide kind of lifts all the boats. And certainly that's what I hope for, since I didn't have a stack of Jordans sitting around, but I do have, I have a lot of these other guys as well. So we'll see. And I know that I think it was 2 parts last night, and I think there's 10 parts. And I don't think there's going to be any sporting events anytime soon. So it's definitely going to, I think the momentum will continue, I think, as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I sold too low now. I saw somebody had there was about 5 or 6 of them. They were all about $18, $19, and they were all gone this morning.
Wow.
And now it's out there. One's out for 35, or 2 at 34, 35, and then the next one is at 100 for 94 Flare.
Wow.
So I don't know. People are just taking them and doubling and on checking my cards. But when I was looking at a hoop space for $12 or something, I'm thinking I remember buying hoops, back in that time, and they were like $1.50 or something. So I'm checking my cards, and as you guys know, and folks listening, you kind of need to do your research first. You just don't, see the first thing you and buy it, but you kind of have to do a little bit of research before you jump into some of this stuff. So.
Oh, yeah, and what's nice about Check Out My Cards is it has the sale. So if you're on, I don't know how it is on a mobile phone, but on a desktop kind of view, it has like the 4-year sales chart up in the top, and you can kind of get an idea of the volume or kind of demand over a period of time for a card. And so I use that a lot if there's a card on there that is priced relatively well, and 40 have sold over the last 4 years. Well, it's telling you that card sells really well. And if there's only maybe 18, 20, 25 of them on the site, that is a card that's going to sell relatively quickly. And so I love that. I kind of wish they'd give you even more information on the site. I'm sure Tim at Check Out My Cards is going to keep improving that kind of thing. But, yeah, for me, it's like Check Out My Cards is awesome because it's kind of its own economy. People have balances on there and kind of keep their cards on there. Some people might exclusively kind of buy and sell on there. And so, you can kind of take advantage of the prices on there. And it certainly speeds things up. Like you said, you bought a Jordan and were able to flip it without having to send PayPal out, have that guy pack and ship it, and then have it be delivered, and then you've got to scan it and list it. There's a lot of time in between there, whereas you can just buy that card, reprice it, and boom, flip it and kind of move on to the next thing. I love that. I mean, I do all my Check Out My Cards can send me a check anytime they want. They don't, but I do the vast majority of my buying and selling on that site, particularly because it's really, really easy and it doesn't require me to do a whole lot other than kind of click buttons.
Yeah, it's I can't say enough about the Check Out My Cards, and I don't know how Jason learned about it, but I learned about it from you and your brother Ryan. But I can't thank you enough for telling us about it. And Tim should send you a check.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe one day. It's awesome. The times I've met, I actually went to Check Out My Cards headquarters. This was a few years ago, and got to sit down and spend, I don't know, we talked for maybe 2 hours or so, just about the business and growing the company and things like that. And I wish I had a checkbook that was large enough to make an investment at that time, because I could just tell this is a company that is very well managed and very well run, and was taking advantage of kind of a gap in the market in the sports card community. And it's no shock or surprise to me at all that they've continued to grow exponentially year after year. And for me, it's, and I can understand there's some people that really love buying the cards and holding them and organizing them and doing all that. For me, that's not something, dealing cards and buying and selling cards for 20 plus years, not necessarily something I want to do. And plus my kids would get their hands on them and wreck them anyways. So being able to just kind of click buttons and buy cards and sell them. And, for me, it's a great, it should be a piece of everybody's arsenal, whether or not you exclusively buy on there or you occasionally. It should be at least something that you check out, especially if you're a buyer, because you might be able to find a deal, or you might be able to find that card or a couple cards that you've really been looking for. And it might just be easier than eBay or easier than working out a deal some other site.
So I'm going to say that I'm guilty as well, and I'm going to say that I knew about Check Out My Cards, but was a little confused about it. But you, Colin, were the one that kind of explained it a little bit on your podcast, and that's basically you're the reason that I started using it more than just browsing and trying to figure out the site. But now that we're 8 years in, I use it every day almost, and I buy, sell, and then flip, and then keep for myself. But I have an opinion on the question that I want to ask you, and I want to see if kind of you have the same. What do you think is keeping Check Out My Cards from being more mainstream? It'll never be eBay, I get that, but what do you think is keeping it from more people using it?
That's a really good question, and I think one of the things I think Tim might be guilty of is he's probably a perfectionist, and so he is probably a little. And this is not a criticism. This is more of an observation. I think he's probably a little slow to implement things on the site that I think would help the searchability of cards, also the ability for sellers to kind of market their cards and things like that. I think they've done some nice things integrating with eBay and with some of the auction stuff that's going on right now. But it's still, for me, to find the cards to buy and sell, I think there could be some improvements in terms of filtering out certain cards I'm not looking for and only kind of see the ones that I am. I think they could do. I don't think they need. The thing is, too, is I don't think they need more customers right now. I think they're almost, I think they were at almost capacity in terms of the space that they have for the cards, in terms of the staff that's required to kind of support all the things that they do. And so I think there's some of that, too, that they can't just put the pedal down and go as fast as possible, because then a lot of other things behind the scenes start breaking down. And so I think there's a little bit of that, But I think if they wanted to become more mainstream, if they wanted more customers and things like that, and really maybe be almost as synonymous as eBay in terms of buying and selling cards, I think they'd have to do a little bit more on the buyer's end, attracting buyers with different kind of promotions, attracting new customers in terms of, a certain different kind of promotions and things like that. I think offering discounts, offering site credit for different things. But again, I think there's some, they're in charge of their own catalog now. But I think there's some things they could integrate with PSA. I think they had an integration with BGS. I don't know if they still have that, but they could integrate with PSA and kind of have that going on. I know the EPAC thing with Upper Deck probably brought in a lot of people as well. But they definitely need a more mobile, I think a mobile-friendly or a mobile app, something that I've seen prototypes of. And I think pushing that out to the market, even if it's a little buggy and it doesn't work, would definitely help. Also, I think trading. If you could trade cards on there and swap cards in that manner, that to me would put it, way above eBay in terms of its capabilities, because obviously you can't trade on eBay. I think it would be amazing to be able to trade cards, maybe even have kind of a community aspect where people can message me on there or have a chat with me about a trade or making a deal or something like that. That's also something that is not on the site. So I think there's some features that I think would help, but whether or not they have the staffing and kind of the manpower to support all that, I don't know. But it probably will come to fruition. But Tim, I think, is a perfectionist. He is like a computer science guy, and I think he wants things really buttoned up really tight before he pushes it out into the marketplace, basically. And so I think whereas, I live close to Silicon Valley, those guys just throw crap on the wall and see what happens. So it's a slightly different attitude. Some founders, some operators have. So I think if he balanced it a little bit, I think it could become even more successful than it already has. But it's kind of like looking at a really nice Corvette and being like, how can we make this better? The Corvette's a really nice car. Does it have flaws? Sure, but it's a Corvette. It's nice. You know what I mean? And so I think that's we're kind of splitting hairs a little bit with Check Out My Card, but I know for a fact Tim would appreciate that kind of discussion and that level of thought about the site, because I'm sure it's something he does every day.
Yeah, I talked to him at the National in Cleveland a couple of years ago, and he had brought up that they were working on the app. And, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was hoping it'd be here by now. So I agree with you that is the mobility. They need a mobile app, something. But kind of to piggyback what you said off the trading, even the gifting, I know I've talked to Ken Kinsley from Beans Ball Card Blog, and that's one thing that we buy cards for each other, and it would be great to just be like, oh, I want to buy this and put it in his port. I feel like if they're moving the cards around anyways, kind of like with the trading, why can't we implement these things? But I agree with you, Tim, in a good way. Does seem like a perfectionist that wants things to run smoothly. Just kind of the vibe I got from talking to him. So that's not a bad thing, but like you said, maybe things could have been done already that we're kind of waiting on.
Nope. Yeah, I agree. But hey, well, I'm sure at some point it'll happen, and we'll all benefit, I'm sure, when it does come to fruition. Although trading, I know I talked to him now about years ago, and so I think there's some, hopefully that comes, because I think that would unlock a ton of cards on there, that might not necessarily sell, but could be packaged up into a trade. Could definitely expose some new opportunities on the site for sure.
Yeah, the checking my cards, I had talked to Tim as well. I guess it was in Chicago, and he demoed that mobile app, which I was hoping it'd be out already, and did talk to him, and he used to work for Microsoft, and I kind of geeked out with him because I'm in IT as well. And and Jason actually wanted me to ask him about selling unopened wax as well. And when I was kind of surprised at the answer, and not really surprised, but that he had put so much thought into this before. And his concern, and Colin, I think you hit it right in the head, where he's kind of a perfectionist. So he didn't want wax boxes because he was afraid that they'd have to be sealed cases because he didn't want the case to be taken out and then sell in wax boxes. And then possibly older wax that was not sealed or whatever, they need to be like maybe shrink wrapped from Baseball Card Exchange or something like that. So, he's definitely thinking of these things, and because he had thought about that for quite a while before I asked him. So, but I think, and I also asked him about because I think, Colin, you had brought it up about, and because you are doing the website and doing the clicks and everything else, about affiliate marketing, and that when the site must have been built, they did not build it for that. So trying to integrate that to capture that information that's not there yet for them to do affiliate marketing. So I think he might be missing. He's great because he was saying he's still coding, him and a couple other developers, which I was really shocked that he's still coding and not, kind of looking at some of these things. Colin, this, like your CEO, he's looking at the company 5 years out. He's not looking at your day-to-day kind of in the trenches. He's looking at kind of where to steer the ship. So I think he might be missing a business piece or whatever. But, again, to your Corvette analogy, it's fantastic. But, it sounds like he is integrating and trying to improve for stuff that's just slow to come.
Definitely. And I think it will come, but, it's like, the Corvette analogy, it's like we want four-wheel drive, or we want this on the Corvette. And it's like, it'll come. GM will do it someday, but, it's not going to come at the speed that the hardcore connoisseurs are definitely would like it to. But it will. I'm confident of that. And certainly if he had affiliate marketing, gosh, it sounds like I could have made a couple dollars off that, but that's okay.
You would have got your check.
Yeah, right. I would have gotten my check. It would have been nice, but that's okay. I've profited. I don't know. I don't keep track. I don't, do accounting on what I've made on the site, but it's probably a fair amount at this point for sure.
So we were talking about that. I have to ask you another question, kind of switch gears. I know you've been in the hobby for a long time. You've, like I said, worked at some shops and had your resale, wholesale license and stuff. And I saw that you were named as a witness in a lawsuit. I don't know if you could talk about that or if you have any idea.
I can talk about that, yeah. Yeah, to be honest with you, I found out, as everybody else found out, I found out on Twitter when
it might have been me.
Yeah, and so I was like, I woke up that morning, people were talking about it, and I saw my name next to, I think it was the executive of the NHL, and I was like, I thought it was fake. I was like, this can't be real. But no, it's 100% legit. I think that. So last year, a ton of stuff happened, and we're actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary of kind of a lot of this trimming stuff and the Heroes of Sport kind of debacle, and there was just a ton of news dropped on the hobby last year, and some of that also involved Leaf trading cards and Joe Clemens and the grading thing that happened there. And so there was a lot of stuff that happened, and I think what happened was this information was mainly being posted on the Blowout Trading Cards forum, and some of it was on Net54, and then some of it was on SportsCardRadio.com. And some of the stuff that really dealt with Brian Gray and Leaf and Joe Clemens, that originated on our site. And some of that information is, I guess we would be considered like the quote unquote witness for some of that information. And I believe some of the stuff involved in this trial relates to that, relates to the Black Label, Joe Clemens kind of stuff. And I think Upper Deck, I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know what Upper Deck's motives are. I don't know if they know that I get under Brian Gray's skin a little bit, or Brian Gray's the CEO of Leaf, if people don't know. I don't know. Honestly, I think there is this misconception that I really don't like Leaf or I don't like Brian Gray. That's not the case at all. It's just, if you do something that I think is shady, if you do something that I think is deceiving collectors, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to let people know about that and let people make their own decisions. But it's not personal. It's not, I don't want to bury him in the ground. I don't want to see him be hauled off in handcuffs and go to jail. That's for the court or police and all that to decide. But there is information related to particularly the Black Label, what happened with the Black Label stuff that was found only on SportsCardRadio.com. And I want to say that is probably why Upper Deck has called us to testify. But then again, I don't know. I do have private conversations that I've had with Brian Gray. Not recently, but when this stuff went down. So obviously I've saved those and things like that. But I don't think it relates to anything like that. I think it's really that the information was on our website, and their lawyers are probably looking at that as we're technically witnesses to that information, and they probably want to know how we got it, where we got it, what else we might know, things like that. And I'm pretty sure the entire court system is frozen due to the coronavirus. So who knows what? I don't know what will happen. I'm not a lawyer. I don't. I've never been called to testify in anything that didn't directly relate to me. So I don't particularly know what will happen, but God knows if I'm called to testify, I will let everybody know what is going on and will give everybody an inside look as much as I could. I mean, if I'm advised not to say anything, obviously I'll have to respect those requests, but my brother and I will no doubt, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to put this, we'll make the most of it. We'll get our money's worth out of it, that's for sure. And whatever happens, we will certainly let people know what happened. But for now, yeah, I don't exactly know Upper Deck's motive, but I believe I have not been, and to be totally transparent, I have not been contacted by them. I have not done anything under oath or talked to any attorneys or anything like that. But yeah, once that day comes, for sure I will let everybody know if that is something I'm, allowed to do at the time, which I don't know at this point. I wish I had more. If I had more, I certainly would say it. But I don't at this time, other than I believe that it's related to the Black Label and kind of grading and kind of card trimming thing that went on, in the summer of last year.
That's why I'm so glad you have the podcast and stuff. You bring everybody along on the journey, and you're not afraid to point out anything that's kind of shady in the hobby, because definitely without any oversight, there's opportunity where people, can be taken advantage of. And that's one of the things that I love at your site. I know you catch a lot of flack for some of that stuff. Everybody wants everything to be all rosy and happy, but sometimes there's some stuff in the hobby that you need to kind of shine the light on, that you think trying to get a bum deal. Because if I think it's what you're talking about is the Jerry Clements, that he got all those 10 black label on SGC, right? Or was that Beckett?
It was on BGS, and he was an employee of Beckett. He used to be an employee of Beckett, and now he works for Leaf. And he, nobody really knew his role, other than that he would send cards back to his former employer and get incredible grade. I mean, he ran like God on submission. It was incredible. And there was also a connection to, now that I recall, so some of the Leaf employees got exclusive cards at the National that were meant for a promotion. So every company does a promotion where you buy XYZ, or you come to the booth and you get a pack of cards, or just some national exclusive cards. Well, a lot of the rare ones, typically there's 1 of 1s and 1s out of 5 and 10 and whatnot. So those went to the employees instead of collectors. And so there's definitely, there's just, I just don't like seeing that. I don't think you need to run your business like that in the hobby. I don't think there's any, and if you do run your business like that, you deserve to be, that deserves to be called upon, and it deserves, whether people are like it or not. There's no hobby police, and I'm not really trying to be the police. I just want to put that information out there and let people know what's going on. And so they can make that decision themselves if they're buying these cards or there's guys out there that probably only collect black labels. And if you're collecting black labels and there's a guy that literally can print those like the United States dollar, you should know about that. You know what I mean? Like, you should know, like, that might affect how you collect and your decision making. And so I think, like you said, people give us crap about it, but my brother and I, we actually like relish in that. We might like that more than people complimenting the show or liking the show. We probably like it almost as much. To me, it's almost a bigger compliment to have somebody listen to your show or consume your content and then take the time to complain about it. That to me is you really done something pretty well, I think, when you can do that level of reporting, I guess you could call it. But I just don't like seeing it. To me, it's not hard to make money in this hobby. It's not hard to do those things, and I don't think there's any place to. I don't think there's any place to be scamming people, but it happens in this hobby as much as any other hobby I've been a part of. So I just try to share that information and let people do with it what they want. You know what I mean?
So I'm curious.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to ask you: do you filter what you put out there? Like, say, 3 things might come to your attention. Do you, or like, I don't need to do this one, I'll do these 2, they're better? Or do you just kind of, whatever I find, I'm putting out there because it's information for the people, like for the collectors?
That's a really good question. So we do, just every week somebody says, hey, this group breaker did this, or this guy's doing this on Facebook. Right. And I would actually say most of it we don't even respond to, only because we don't want to ever put ourselves in the position where we call, and maybe it's happened, I don't know, where we call somebody out and it's not an accurate reflection of the situation. We typically, I think my brother put it one way, we try to punch our way up. You know, the guy on Facebook, the group breaker in his mom's basement or whatever, you know, those guys are going to exist. And, you know, have we taken shots at those guys? Sure. But if Leaf is doing something, if Beckett is doing something, if PSA is doing something, if one of these more major companies, I guess you could say, Panini, Topps, all of them, if they're doing something that we don't think is above board, then, yeah, we typically run with it almost right away. But a lot of the little stuff we let go, not because we don't think it's important, but I think it gets, after a while, it might get muddled if we're just constantly, hey, this guy scammed people out of an $800 break, or, you know, I think it would get muddled a little bit. And so we typically try to focus on either the most egregious kind of scams and the ones that might even be kind of humorous, or obviously kind of punching up to, you know, the companies that everybody is aware of in the hobby,
right.
Whether it's a grading company or something like that. We typically focus there because that's the most, you know, to me, if you're not going to police them, then, you know, what do you do? You know, there's no reason to talk about the little guys and stuff like that are doing stuff. But yeah, we are sent stuff all the time on Facebook, email, Twitter, but typically we don't even respond to a lot of the little stuff. You got to be, people have just got to be vigilant on their own. But some of this big stuff, yeah, we definitely feel, I don't know if it's a responsibility or if it's just, it's, you know, after 12 years doing a podcast, you start running out of shit to talk. Stuff to talk. I don't know if we can cuss on this. You run out of stuff to talk about. And so, you know, when Topps or Panini or something like that are doing something that is kind of off base or off board, then, yeah, you got to run with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of those little guys, they're going to fall by the wayside anyways on their own. Especially right. Because a lot of that stuff where people were scamming breaks or whatever, a lot of times those collectors take care of it themselves. And like you said, the bigger stuff is what I would worry about as well. So.
Right. No, exactly.
So I don't know if you saw the news this week, and I'd love to get your opinion. I think I already know, but Panini modified their redemption. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yes, I did. So you will get an exclusive here because I was definitely going to talk about this on my podcast, and I will talk about it here first. To me, given the situation we have going on where, you know, we obviously have this coronavirus, Panini is not releasing any trading cards from an unopened box perspective at the cadence or the schedule that they were going to anyway. So basketball, football, baseball, and sort of NASCAR, all this stuff has been pushed back and likely somewhat indefinitely, although I think it'll get fired up within probably 30 to 60 days. But everything's going to be delayed. So the hobby then was going to start focusing, especially breakers and stuff like that, we're going to start focusing on 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016 products that's still out there and still, you know, in unopened box form. And so to pull the rug out from collectors that were now focused on that product, to just pull the rug out with no advance warning. You know, if Panini were smart, and I'll get to the reason why I really think they're probably in more financial stress than people think, because if they were smart, if this was like something to drive sales or something they wanted to drive sales, they could have gave like a 30-day notice. They could have been like, guys, we're going to change our policy, but we're going to give you 30 days. Everybody would have ran out and just busted all this stuff open. You know what I mean? But so instead of doing that, they literally just and it was very casually, it seemed like, on Twitter and maybe on some others. I don't think they made like a blog post or an official press release about it or anything like that. It was just really casually, oh, yeah, we're no longer going to support these redemptions. And I think people looked at it as, oh, look, they're going to, it's a company that prints money and now they're being even more greedy. I actually think it's the opposite. I think that this is a company that runs on very thin margins. This is a company that, yes, from a sales perspective, probably looks rather impressive, especially when you're selling, $4,000 or $5,000 boxes. From a top-line perspective, looks very impressive. But when you start chopping out all the hands that are in that business, from the distributor to the leagues to the players to the manufacturer that actually makes the cards, to the employees, to UPS and FedEx that actually have to ship the cards, they're not left with mountains of money at Panini. And then when you factor in, they have all these IOUs that are either sitting in the boxes right now in terms of a form of a redemption, or a lot of people that actually collect these cards, probably have maybe a dozen, 2 dozen, maybe even more redemptions that are sitting online in Panini's system that are waiting to be redeemed. And some of them are months, if not years old. And so that is a liability on a company that is not making lots and lots and lots of profit. They just don't. License, like Nike license, makes the jerseys to NFL. They don't make any money doing that. Do they make a little bit? Sure. No, Nike makes money selling, $20 sneakers for $200. So, I actually think it's a sign that some gloomier days might be coming. Some gloomier days might be coming. Especially the longer that they don't get to print cards, the longer they don't get to make cards. The leagues aren't going to take an IOU like collectors are. I know that for a fact because I have season tickets to the NFL. They're charging me for them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I don't know if the games are going to be played, let alone if I'm going to be able to go to the game. But the NFL isn't going to stop taking my money. So I doubt they're not going to let Panini stop paying any kind of royalty and any kind of guarantee that is owed to them. So this is a company, I think, that, the longer this goes on, could be. I mean, if they were swimming in money, would they do something like this? If they were just printing money like the United States government, would they do something like this? I don't think so. I don't think they would. So I just think it's, if I had redemptions, not expired redemptions, if I had redemptions sitting in their system, I would not be feeling very good right now, especially if it was a lot of money and a lot of very significant cards, because that to me is next. That they're like, well, if you have a redemption in the system that's 18 months old, you're SOL, and you get 300 Panini points, or you get this, XYZ player. Buy. Topps has done that. Topps has had sent out, I think it was Gary Carter one year, where they just, if you had a redemption in their system, they literally cleared it out and sent you a Gary Carter autograph. And so to me, that's next. That you have a Kobe Bryant or a Magic Johnson or some a Jeff Gordon or whatever autograph sitting in their system, and then they're all of a sudden send you some 12th man on the bench and say sorry. So to me, that would worry me very much. Thankfully, I do have 0 redemption cards, but I know there's lots of people probably listening right now that have plenty of redemptions and ones that they probably spent lots of money on and care a lot about. So I'm not trying to make anybody nervous or scared. I'm just telling you exactly how I feel, because I've seen this. We've seen this happen before. To me, this is like the first step to a card company kind of showing to the community that they're not very financially secure. I want to say Fleer and Donruss did similar things right before they had some problems. Upper Deck has had financial troubles. Topps as well. None of these companies are as financially secure as it might seem, particularly because the leagues and the owners make all the money. You know what I mean? Like, think about Mark Cuban and Jerry Jones and these guys that own these leagues. These guys don't want to see Panini get rich. They want to get rich. These guys are greedy. So, yeah, I'd be worried. I'd be concerned. This is not a move from a company to me. This is not a confidence-building move from a company when we're literally, everybody's like, has this uncertainty going on right now in the entire world, and all of a sudden they're pulling expired redemptions out when they're live, too. That's the key thing, too. Like, some of these cards are live. Like, you get a redemption card, yes, it might be expired, but that card is live. The guy, Kobe or Giannis or whoever, has signed those cards, and they probably have those cards. And they're not going to fulfill them now? Whew, I don't know. That, to me, is, again, if they were swimming in money over there at Panini, I don't see any reason why you would do this, especially as suddenly and as quickly as they did. They should have gave everybody 15 days, 30 days notice, and they could have created, like, they literally could have created a marketing event around the whole thing, but they didn't even do that. So I don't know. I'd be concerned. I don't know if I'm off base. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but that's how I feel about it.
No, I'm glad you mentioned Fleer. Sorry, I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned Fleer because I remember when they went bankrupt and if you had an outstanding redemption, you just got random cards from their inventory. And I remember it was like a crapshoot of what you were going to get. And it was funny that you talked about the Gary Carter thing with Topps because I remember something about that as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, because it's happened before. That's the thing. It's like there was no precedent to this, then I could be making up some wild conspiracy right now. But there's literally precedent for this in the hobby. And when they pull the rug out from people, when people are losing their jobs, maybe losing their health, and the company is not making any new cards. So we're all, if you're an unopened box guy or you like to buy into breaks or whatever it is, you're going back to 2018. You're going back to 2017. You're going back to 2016. Like, that's literally what people are doing now. And to then basically kill those sales or to kind of put a damper on those sales, to me, makes no sense from a business perspective other than you're sitting around the boardroom and you're thinking, man, you're starting to look at the balance sheet and you're starting to think, wow, we've got all these unfunded liabilities in terms of redemption. We got to start making some changes right now. Like, it seemed like somebody looked at the financials and was like, dude, we got to make, we can't wait 30 days. We got to make decisions right now and start changing things. That, I don't know. I would be wildly concerned. Not only that, I mean, how are they getting autographs right now? These guys aren't playing, I know that, but, it's got to be tough getting autographs from these players right now when they're in quarantine. They're not supposed to be within 6 feet of anybody. So it's I'd be nervous. I'd be concerned, especially if you had high dollar cards with them. What I see a lot happen too is guys get a really nice card and it has a small little ding on it, and then they contact Panini and it's like, hey, can you replace this? And I'm thinking to myself, like, I wouldn't take that chance. Like, this is a company that could literally take that card, sit on it for 2 years, and then send you a load of crap in return for it. So, I'd be very careful. There's a reason why I have 0 redemptions and zero exposure to this, because it can happen And it's not, the Gary Carter situation for me was like one of the biggest ones in recent memory was like, just like, they literally just sent you a message, and I don't remember. I remember I got one. I don't remember what it was for. It probably wasn't for anything significant, but it can happen, and I would be. For me, it's not a good sign. It's not a sign. I saw some people like saying, "Oh, they make so much money that now they can do this." I don't think that's. To me, this is not a sign of a company that's making a bunch of money and then just decides to say "F you" to everybody. I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, I think the canary in the coal mine here, you kind of touched on it, is what do they do with the really old redemptions that are already in the system? They clear them out and say, okay, here you go, and kind of flush everything out. So that's going to be something, I guess, to look forward to. That's why I love talking with you. Some of these insights. And I have a couple of things here I wanted to talk to you about. So, yeah, I think, to your point, maybe, and I think Jason had to drop off, but that, they should have given a little more warning, or that the labels on the hobby boxes or blaster boxes should, it's in little print where everything expires by a certain date. Now that these are all literally expiring, do they have an obligation to put in big, bold print that, a year and a half after this box, if there's a redemption in it, it's no-go?
I think they could create, like, if they really had, like, a really good marketing department over there, they could create a marketing event around it. They could have a little countdown on their website and be like, hey, 2016 playoff prestige, they're going to expire. Here's where you can buy it, and throw links up to Steel City and Blowout Cards and DA and say, hey, they could, like, literally create a marketing event around the redemptions expiring. But they don't, because they want them to expire worthless. And their move this last week is an illustration of that. They want to put these IOUs in boxes and then have them go unclaimed. And to me, that is just, I can't think of another industry that I'm involved in where it's like they want, like if I bought a car and there was an IOU in there for a certain kind of entertainment package, and then all of a sudden, I just don't think it's a sign of a company that is really doing well. Because if they were really doing well and they really wanted these redemption cards to be fulfilled and really meet those obligations, they could create a marketing event around it. They could give people notice. They could put links to, here's Blowout. Blowout has a box. DA has a box. Steel City has a box. All this stuff. They could, like, show where you could buy this stuff before the clock ran out. But they literally just hit the clock and hit the expiration on the clock and put it to zero and said, sorry, guys. And I just think, I start thinking about what's next. After that, like, what is next after they do something like that? Because if they can do something like that as casually and as easily as they did that, what is next? Like you said, are the redemptions that are 24 months old in the system, all of a sudden you get, some Joe Scrub on the Phoenix Suns as a replacement, and we've seen that happen. So it just doesn't, to me, doesn't show a lot of confidence, and I certainly wouldn't have confidence if I pulled a redemption of any kind from Panini or pretty much any company. I would not have a lot of confidence that I was going to get that card, and I definitely would not have a lot of confidence that I would get it in a timely fashion. So,
yeah, I don't have a lot of redemptions. Yeah, but I don't have a lot of redemptions. When I do the NASCAR stuff, I put when I list the checklist and stuff like that, I put, like, the day it was released, and I also put the information of when the redemptions expire. Because, like you, I think, that is poor business. I understand why the card companies do it, but I think they're trying to rush the product out, and they shouldn't release it if not. But I guess where I was going with this is that, redemption started getting in the system and we were getting accustomed to it. But Topps, I don't know if you remember, I guess it was in 08, 09 or something. They ran, they had their redemption for, I guess it was a code, and you put it in and you got a card. And they actually didn't put the card in the pack, and they ran that promo. And then, like, the following year, they did the same promo again. And I'm thinking, okay, are these the same cards, but because people didn't claim them and people didn't pay to get them shipped, that they kind of got flushed out? You know, are they reselling the same redemption again and again because people aren't getting them? And, you know, when you look at the older wax boxes, you know, when you put those redemptions in those signatures, they have value. And so that box has value. And then as they age, those boxes have value because, like the 2000 Tom Brady's and stuff like that over time. But how, and I saw this on the PSA message board, somebody opened a box of 2000 and it was a Brady signature, I think, or something like that. And I was like, oh my goodness, if that was a live card, that would have been incredible. But because they're not doing that, those boxes, you know, don't have that much value. And, you know, now that people are buying the older wax, like you were saying, because people are home and buying stuff, and now that all of a sudden all these are expired, if you were sitting on older wax, you know, I have a case of some of the race, and I know that Victory Lane, I know there's some redemptions in it, like 2019. I need to open it because I need to get it in the window. Otherwise, I am done.
Right. Yeah. No, and it takes away that whole aspect of, sitting on anything, because if there's any significant redemptions in there, the company could lose their license. I mean, we've seen this with Upper Deck. They've lost their license with baseball, football, and basketball, and Topps has lost it with football and basketball as well. So it's like, you know, when they lose the license and you're sitting on something that maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, it creates a situation where, you know, that's, you know, people aren't going to be sitting, you know, I don't know how big that market is anyways, but, you know, if you do want to sit on it, now you have to worry about, you know, there's just so much that you have to worry about. And you do have to open it up. And I think these companies would, I think it'd be great marketing, and it would be a great way to build goodwill in the hobby to really create a clear policy and a clear, it'd be great to have like a sequence of events that they would follow. Like the guy pulls a 2000 Tom Brady. I mean, they probably cannot make that card anymore, and maybe they don't have a relationship with Tom Brady or maybe even the NFL. But here's what we will do for you. Like, I'd love to see a card company do that. Be like, okay, you pull a card that's 20 years old that's worth, you know, $8,000 or whatever. Here's what we will do for you. We'll try to do this. It just seems that there is no rhyme or reason a lot of times to what they're doing. And when they do things like this, it just really makes me concerned that, you know, the executives were sitting around and they started looking at the financials and they realized they got to start making some big decisions really quickly. Because I know that I think it's every 6 months they have to pay these leagues. And it's a lot of money. I know for the NFL, it's like millions, tens of millions of dollars a year just for the NFL license, let alone the NBA and all the other stuff they're doing. So, you know, I can see how, you know, you're a month away from that bill being due, and then all of a sudden, you're choked off from putting out new products. You know, you might start worrying about being able to pay that obligation. So that, I don't know if that's what's going on, but just from, seeing all these card companies go in and out, most of them have gone bankrupt or gone bust. So to say it's actually it's not a conspiracy. It's actually not a stretch of the imagination to think, well, Panini could go bust one day, and that would definitely make me nervous if they owed me anything of any kind of value. So, not trying to scare your listeners, not trying to, make them concerned, but I think it is worth talking about because everybody's working hard these days. Everybody wants to make their dollar go a little further, and just being aware of this stuff might help you make those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily scaring folks. I mean, when it comes to NASCAR wax, all you got to do is wait a couple of months and it'll drop. There's nothing that sells for more than what it came out for. So, but I could see folks buying, older wax, 2017, 2018. I think 2018 Prism is expired. Victory Lane, this other stuff. You get in a box, but now if you get a redemption, they're no longer valid. It's not even, hey, I'm giving you 100 Panini points or getting what you wanted. It's don't even send it in because use it as a filler or to protect your number one card in a wax box or whatever, in a storage box. So, and you make a point about Panini, because Panini is European country, right? A company, right? And then they have a U.S. presence here, but I don't think they're headquartered out of here. Or do you know?
No, they are headquartered in Italy, of all places, which, hopefully everybody's, in good health in their home country. I know that they have, so it was a company that was founded a while ago. They have a presence with comic books and obviously the soccer stickers every 4 years with the World Cup. But they actually restructured the business a few years ago where it allowed some of the original, and this is Panini Group, not necessarily Panini America. This is the entire gigantic company. So they restructured that. They had a mountain of debt. I want to say they had hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of a liability, in terms of debt. And so they were able to kind of restructure that, allow some of the original owners to exit the company and kind of, basically sell their shares, collect some money, go retire or whatever they wanted to do. And it allowed kind of a newer group to kind of lead the company into the next age. Panini America is, I would guess, is a small fraction of the entire company. When I look at their sales, like a 10, 15-year, because their sales, they put every World Cup, they kind of brag about how much revenue they have. And so you can they always, they're on CNBC or Bloomberg kind of bragging about their sales. And I think Panini America kind of got founded right around 2007 or 2008, right around that time. Well, Panini Group, the entire company's sales, has never really gone up that much. So it just shows to me that Panini America, when it comes to football cards, baseball cards, basketball cards, doesn't really add a bunch of money to the entire thing. The company is really reliant on the soccer stickers and distributing comic books overseas. The baseball, football, basketball, NASCAR stuff certainly generates revenue, certainly probably generates a small amount of profit, but it's not nearly, I think there's a misconception in the hobby that this is a company that's just swimming in cash and everybody's balling. That is not the case. They have leveraged the company tremendously. They've borrowed mountains and mountains of money to keep the company. And that's the same with Topps. Topps has, I think, $200 or $300 million in debt, and I think they had about $400 million in sales in the last calendar year. So it just shows you that, think about that. Like, if you were like a person and you had $80,000 in credit card debt and you made $100,000, in salary, you're probably not feeling that rich. And so that's where these companies are. They make lots in sales, but they have a mountain of debt to pay off. And so it's I wouldn't be super confident in terms of them meeting their obligations, because if these companies find financial hardship, the banks and the people that own the debt get taken care of first. The redemption cards, the leagues, the athletes, those guys are second, and obviously the collectors would be, would be last. And we've seen that play out. I don't want to say that that's what I think is going to happen, but it's certainly, especially with what's going on right now, it's certainly a possibility. So I hope for everybody who's listening, I hope that's not the case, but it is, there's been a pattern of this in the past. And so I would not, there's not a big I think to sum it up, there's not a big group behind Panini America that just has a mountain of money and they can just bail them out. That is not, from everything that I've seen, and I've actually gotten a lot of good information. People have sent me and that's really where I've gotten most of my information about this, is I've had other people send me a lot of information about this. There's not a big, gigantic corporation behind Panini America that just is sitting on cash that can just bail these guys out. And that is the same with Topps. It's the same with Upper Deck. It's the same with all of them. These are as fragile as any other company that exists, especially in times like these.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, I was thinking like with Press Pass, who actually I found out was a company underneath oil gas company, and they weren't making a ton of money either. And I think they were trying to go after the college license and stuff like that, and got beat by Upper Deck, whatever. And I think they just decided to, just kind of close up. But the profit margin on making stickers and sticker books has got to be huge compared to, I don't think people realize what it takes to go into the cards, right? You need a license from the sport, players, player images. You need to create the cards. If you're going to have jerseys and signatures, you need to acquire that. And the signatures, I've heard it said a couple times that, like, for NASCAR, they have to pay the drivers for the signatures, and you can get the cards on the secondhand market cheaper than what the company paid to get the driver to sign the card.
Absolutely.
And then you have the overhead of upper management and the printing of the cards and distribution and stuff. So I think you're right on with the margins, and you're hoping that they're making some money and that they can kind of maybe squirrel it away. But there's companies that mismanage their money all the time. If you follow business, good companies go under by being mismanaged or whatever. So it's just business, right?
It's just business, and they're not immune to any of the other. I mean, I saw Neiman Marcus is going to go bankrupt. We're going to see a slew of bankruptcies over the next 12 to 24 months. I mean, companies that people probably had no idea were in any kind of financial trouble. I mean, obviously, like JCPenney's and Sears and some of these places are 100% going to go out of business. But there's going to be so many businesses that are going to shock people that are going to go out of business for a number of different reasons. And again, I don't want to say that I think that's going to happen. I just think it's the longer that they don't get to make cards, the higher the probability it will happen. Because, like you said, they pay the NFL a royalty on sales and the players a royalty on sales, but it is guaranteed. So even if they sell $0 and trade, everybody just quits cards and nobody buys them. Well, guess what? They still have to pay the NFL whatever I know with the Players Association, I think it's $20 million a year. So think about that. That's like $2 million a month, basically, that they are paying the NFL Players Association. They probably pay the owners a similar amount. So we're talking about close to $40 million a year just in a licensing fee to make football cards. We haven't talked about basketball cards, baseball cards, NASCAR cards, or any other cards that they make. It is not, these leagues and these leagues are owned by very, 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 Mark Cuban's on Shark Tank. These guys are all sharks. They do not let people use their logos and their property to get rich. They do it for themselves to get rich. They're not looking at Panini and being like, how can we help you make money? That's not how they look at it. They look at it, how can they squeeze a company like Panini's neck to where they can make a little bit of profit, stay in business, but they basically take the maximum amount of money. That's how they look at it, and they do a great job at it. That's why most deals with the NFL and the NBA and all these leagues is a sponsorship. Just like how Pepsi might sponsor a driver in NASCAR, they're not looking at it as, okay, we're gonna sponsor them for $20 million and we're gonna make $22 million in Pepsi sales. They don't look at it like that. They look at it as, okay, we spend this amount of money on marketing and we're gonna do $20 million on this NASCAR driver, and hopefully it drives awareness to either Pepsi or KFC or whatever brand that they want to attach to the guy. So it's a sponsorship. Most of the time it is a sponsorship, and it's almost like an advertising deal. And, but some of these companies like Panini actually try to eke out a profit, and they do probably for the most part, but we're seeing so much uncertainty now in terms of them being able to manufacture cards that it could become a very dire situation. Because like I said, the money to the league is guaranteed. They don't care that the coronavirus is going on right now. They don't give a crap. They're going to want their check. I think it's every 6 months. So coming up, in 2 months, all these manufacturers, Topps and Panini, are going to have to send a check to the leagues that they have licenses with, whether they made cards or not, whether they sold cards or not. And that's, I certainly wouldn't be, if I was an executive at one of these companies, I certainly wouldn't be excited about that. I know that for a fact. So, that might be the reason why we're seeing them make some of these decisions that are not at all popular with collectors. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real balancing act, because you have like Major League Baseball and the rest of them, and I was thinking like with Topps, they want to let Topps produce cards, but they want to get paid. They don't want to overcharge Topps so that they put them out of business, the card companies, to pay the sport the money to let them be in business, but not to make a ton of money off of them, right?
Exactly.
To your point,
exactly.
So I was thinking like with baseball cards probably back in the 80s and stuff like that, and then more card companies got into it, and more of them were wanting to do anything for a license, and they were spending a ton of money just to get it. But I think the card companies didn't think about what that was going to do with driving the price up, and because I'm sure Major League is not going to drop the price and let Topps or whoever make a bunch of money, right? Because you have the players and the league, they want to survive as well. So
for sure, and it's I mean, we could talk about the margins that a pro team might make. It's probably not as sexy as it might seem. So these guys have to generate, they have to generate money, and they're not, the NFL does not exist to make money for anybody except the players and the owners. Those are the only two people that it exists for, to make money. I mean, even like the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl on CBS or Fox, they don't really make, and everybody sees how much, companies pay per ad or whatever. They don't make a ton of money airing the Super Bowl, just like the NBC doesn't make a ton of money airing the Olympics. It's really so they can promo whatever other shows that they have going on, and because that's what they make money. CBS and Fox, that's how they make money. They make money on The Big Bang Theory or some other show. They just get the Super Bowl to drive eyeballs to other things. And so I think that's what a lot of people don't. I get the feeling like a lot of people don't get that in the hobby, that these companies are doing really well. That is, no, the owners of these leagues are doing really well. And the reason why is because companies like Panini exist, and Nike and AT&T and all this stuff, they exist to basically attach their name to, and it's NASCAR might be maybe the shining example of that, where these guys have patches and, stuff all over their car and their hat. And, none of those companies, that logo isn't responsible for that company making money. It is an advertising expense. It's part of a budget that company has, and it allows them to get an image. It allows them to attach their name to either a certain driver or a certain kind of lifestyle. And, but that company is going to make money doing something else, and selling a product, selling something else. It's not going to be directly related to the logo on the guy's hat.
Yeah, I think NASCAR is Bill France, Sr., the original. I think he might have been a mastermind when it came to that back in the early days. They'd run the races, and then he gets sponsorship for the race, and then it would be, the Bojangles 500 or whatever, and then the advertising on the sides of the cars and the driver's suits, and then, it just because, the company's not making anything for being on the car or whatever. They're getting, like you said, the airtime. And I remember them calculating like how much airtime that they would get on the TV, and then that was a formula that said, okay, this is how much value you're getting for being a sponsor of the team. And, DuPont for Jeff Gordon, or Lowe's Home Improvement for Jimmy Johnson, they're synonymous with that image and with that driver. So.
Oh, yeah, and I just being very, very, very casual observer of NASCAR, like you said, DuPont, what is the first thing I think of when I think DuPont? Jeff Gordon. And, Home Depot, Tony Stewart, even Pepsi with Jeff Gordon, Budweiser with Dale Earnhardt. So, that's I think that's really how these companies view it is, okay, we're going to have to pay X amount of millions of dollars this year, but over the life of that contract, even after the guy retires, there's still some brand equity attached to that. There's value there. I'm not going to say that, that there's no value in sponsoring these guys, but it plays out over a very long period of time. And if you're a company like Panini that is relying on this really to make payroll or to, really support your business year after year, any kind of hiccup, we've seen can really, really disrupt, the offerings that we see as collectors. So, like everybody else, I'm hoping the situation we're in now resolves itself as quickly as possible, because if it doesn't, I think we're going to see rapid changes in the sports card world, especially, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure how it is on your side of the country, but on the East Coast, in the South, I'm hearing rumbles of, okay, we're going to get ready to try to lift some of this. But I think you're correct. The sooner that we get this lifted and we get back to normal, it's going to be good. There's still going to be effects, I think, to your point, 6 months, a year down the line. The longer it goes on, I think, the worse it gets. So how is it on you in California?
In California, it is, I don't want to get too political right now, but I will just say that Californians, you don't have to tell us twice not to go to work and not do anything. People were very obedient out here, and I think we have a governor that likes that control. And for better or for worse, it might be, I also am of the belief that it has been around way longer. The virus I'm talking about has been around way longer than people think. So, we'll see. I think California will be later rather than sooner. I've seen some other governors in smaller states and maybe a little bit more conservative states already talk about not movie theaters, but gyms and bowling alleys and things like that being open. I think, for me out here in California, I think it's a ways away from that. The craziest thing is we're all allowed to go to the grocery store and all kind of meet there. Everybody in the community gets to go to the grocery store, but I can't go out hunting. I can't go to the golf course. I can't, it's just, I don't know. It seems kind of odd to me, but, I think parts of the country will get online much sooner than out here in California, and certainly New York, but maybe in New Jersey and places like that, but probably for good reason there. Out here in California, we have, I think, 20 million people or maybe more than that. And I think I saw at the last count 20,000 people have gotten this disease. And obviously I feel bad for those people. But we're talking about, millions and millions of people out here. So at some point we need to get back to work. But I don't think the governor and the people of this state are going to, we're not going to be out protesting. I think there are some protests, but they're going to be very minor out here. People are going to obediently obey whatever Governor Newsom tells them, for better or for worse. And hey, that's the way it is out here. But I could move. I guess I could move to another state, but for now, I've got to live with it, I guess.
Yeah, well, here in the South, we haven't really had any protests right now. I think everybody's being very obedient as well. I think what you kind of say is, the number of people infected as to the total population, which, thank God it's such a small percentage. You don't want to lose any life, but when you look at some of the other countries in Europe where they're running 10%, it's just the heart goes out to everybody. It is such mass. Nothing we've ever seen in our lifetime, or I guess maybe 100 years ago, but it's incredible.
No, and I've never seen it, and I just think I still think we're in the early innings of the impact it's going to have economically, because, like you said, it is a global situation, and the entire globe is going to be in a recessionary environment indefinitely. Right now, it's for an indefinite period of time. And I saw people spending their stimulus check, and I was thinking, I'm going to hold on to this money like it's my first girlfriend or something, because this I don't know what, and I've got 2 kids, and so I think if I was a single guy, I'd be like, whatever. But I was thinking, God, this might be the last $2,900 I see in a while. So I'm going to hold on to this as tightly as I can. But I don't. If somebody wants to go blow it on something, that's by all means, go have fun and do it. But it's probably better for the economy that you do. But for me, I don't know if it's negative or just cautious, but I still feel like, man, we are still in the early innings of the impact this is going to have from an economics perspective. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. Things bounce back. I saw, related to NASCAR, I saw that the Texas governor talked to, I think it's the Texas Motor Speedway, and it sounded like they were going to have a NASCAR event with no fans, but on TV. I don't know where that was in the schedule of NASCAR, but it sounded like, well, maybe within the next short period of time, you'll have a NASCAR event running on TV, which I think would be fantastic. I think that would be great. I think the TV viewership of that, I'm sure they get good ratings as it is, but I'm sure in a time like this, it would be off the charts probably.
Yeah, I don't know if you probably haven't noticed, but they have switched over to iRacing, and they've been running a race like what should be on the schedule on Sunday, and Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy have been commentating it. And iRacing is very, very similar to real racing. William Byron, you might know that name. He came up through the ranks. He runs for Rick Hendrick, and he learned through iRacing. So it's very real. They map the track, all the bumps, everything. So they've been doing that the last couple of weeks. And again, it's no substitute, but I'd watch the race, and sometimes I'd forget I was watching the video game. And it was really cool because if they destroy the car, they get one reset. So they can come into the pit and get kind of a whole brand new car. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's cool.
So they've been running that the last couple of weeks. But, yeah, and I think they were talking about Charlotte here in Charlotte running the Coke, I guess, 600 without any fans. And I think that's Memorial Day weekend. So we'll see how that works. So.
I mean, you got to take the first step. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, you got to wait for this. You got to wait for that. And it's like, we've never done this before. So you're going to do things. You got to do things and then evaluate. If somebody wants to stay home, you can stay home. If somebody wants to quit their job and stay home and not do anything, that's fine. There shouldn't be any penalty for that. But, life does have to get going, and that involves, things like racing and getting that on TV and eventually maybe getting some fans out there and doing that. And I think that would be a net positive. Certainly from just an experimental perspective, running a race and seeing what happens. And if it goes well, then guess what? You can come back next Sunday and run another race and just keep it going. And eventually things will get to the point where things will maybe get to a new normal. And then eventually the treatments and things like that will get us back to, cheersing Budweisers and high-fiving and stuff on the infield of a track or something like that. I think we'll eventually get back to that point. When that is, I don't know. But I think people will definitely appreciate it as much or more when that time comes again. So I'm definitely looking forward to that for sure.
Colin, I have one more question for you. And I appreciate you spending so much time with us today.
Problem. My pleasure.
On redemptions, do you think the manufacturer should release a checklist of redemptions so that the consumer knows beforehand in the product? Or do you think that's too much to ask for them?
I don't think that's too much at all to ask for them. I think they should have a really... to me, it's amazing that these companies, it's amazing that, Sports Car Radio was once known for the site that had a bunch of this information on there. And it was primarily because Topps and Panini and Upper Deck were terrible at putting this information on their website. And they have people that work for them that are highly capable, probably even more capable than my brother and I would literally sit around in our apartment and put this stuff up. So these guys that they have actually paid workers and employees that actually are closer and more involved in the making of the cards could definitely put this up and could have a database with it, could have a mobile app with it, could have be putting out information week after week after week. They could be going to blowout cards and posting on the forums. They could have, now you could have a Facebook group devoted to this kind of stuff. And I think, almost advertise it more. And I'm talking about the redemption card specifically. They could advertise that, hey, here's who's a redemption card. Here's the time frame we're looking at. I mean, every card has this generic 4 to 8 weeks or whatever time frame. I think they could be even more transparent than that. If they know that a certain athlete will sign it in 4 to 8 weeks, they could put that. But if they know if it's, another athlete that takes way longer or only signs once a year, be transparent about that. Be like, hey, this guy only signs once a year in Charlotte at the airport, and we'll be sure to try to get that, this year in June or whatever. Be transparent about that. There's always this, mystery. They know. That's the thing. Is they know. They know what redemptions are in the product. They know the time frame in which they might or might not get them back. They should be telling people. They shouldn't let, speculation run wild. It doesn't. I think in some situations, speculation is good in the hobby, but when it comes to redemption and what are the redemptions and when they were likely to be signed, that is not good speculation to have. So to like iron that out and create a lot more transparency around that, I think would be like exponentially better for the collecting experience and the cards and the values and things like that. Why they don't do that is, I think, more like laziness and lack of accountability at these companies than anything. I think they're fully capable of doing it, but they don't. So yes, I think they should not only be very transparent about it, but I think they could even go the extra mile. Especially Panini when we're talking about Panini, they have a football license, they have a basketball license, they have a Players Association license with baseball, they have NASCAR, they have, some Disney stuff, and they do a lot. Panini is like their whole business is kind of this licensing thing. When we're talking about like Topps and Upper Deck, we're talking about like one major license with these companies, and maybe a couple smaller ones. Like those are the companies I would totally expect this out of, and we just don't get it. And even to this day, they've gotten a little bit better on the information side, on the checklist and some of that stuff. But even then, stuff like release dates, they're not even super transparent about. So to me, it's a little confusing. And that's also why I don't have a lot of confidence in these companies financially and things like that, because if you were buttoned up all the way financially, you'd have all this, you have all these T's and I's dotted by now, but they don't. So it's frustrating for anybody listening right now and collectors like that. But it is the world we live in, and it is the world you live in if you only collect new stuff and you collect unopened stuff, or you're buying it from a break or buying it online or something. If you're buying single cards and things like that, I think it's more or less something you have to be aware of. And if you're not buying redemptions and things like that, it doesn't affect you too much. But, if a driver or an athlete comes along and you're very, maybe you saw them in their early days, or you're friends with them, or they're from your hometown or whatever it is, and you want to be actively out there collecting them, it is frustrating because they might have redemptions, and then all of a sudden you fall into that category where you're having to buy this stuff because you have a keen interest in that athlete or the driver or whatever. So it's, I think I wish I could say there'd be like a way to like pressure the companies into doing it and to like getting better at it. But I'd almost think it would take some kind of turnover, or, these companies being sold or something like that to somebody that was a little bit more passionate or a little bit more, maybe a better operator or something like that at it. But, I think I wish there was more. Wish there was more transparency about it. Do I expect it? Unfortunately, I don't mean to be negative. Hopefully I wasn't too negative today, but I don't expect it. I would be pleasant, but I would say I'd be very pleasantly surprised if it does, something like that does occur in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that somebody would take that on and try to lead by example, and maybe we're not in the business of, we don't know, but I was thinking like Press Pass, they had great customer service, and I redeemed a redemption that was 8-10 years old, and they had the card. So
wow,
and it was awesome. But I guess when you talked about business, there's so many aspects of it, and I guess, trying to be good at all the pieces, but you would think that maybe some of that would relate to bringing more business if you're more transparent, but maybe it's not. And sometimes I look with NASCAR, like Panini has the license for NASCAR, but it doesn't seem like NASCAR helps them out much with advertising and stuff, and so Panini has to make the cards and for all these things, and then they have to be their own work on their own marketing, and I don't know if they put enough resources into that. And I know Tracy does some stuff and some of the other folks, but maybe they need more marketing folks, and that would help drive more sales, or maybe they have more than they can handle right now. I don't know.
Well, I think what they could do is outsource. I think they could do a better job of reaching out to the community and maybe supplying some of that information to the community and letting the other blogs and websites and forums out there, aggregate that information for them so they could have a list of redemptions. Maybe they don't have time to put it on their website. Maybe they don't have time to mess with it or really do a whole lot with it. Well, they could matriculate that information to bloggers and website owners and say, hey, here's the list of the redemptions in this product. Here's some other information kind of tied to that. You guys do with it what you want. And I think there'd be a long line of guys and girls that would be willing to take that information and, disseminate it out to collectors, whether it's on a YouTube video or a website or a podcast or anything like that. So I think there could be closer, and I've done stuff in the past with Upper Deck and Panini and Topps and all the companies, but it always is, it's never super consistent, and it's never, it seems like it goes on for a little while, maybe a season or two, and then the communication kind of drops off. And I just think that they could, if they don't want to do it themselves, if they don't have time for it or whatever, they could outsource that for free. I mean, they literally could get these guys doing it for free because there is an incentive to put this on your website, whether you're just trying to get traffic or make money or both or whatever, or have content to talk about and discuss. I think they could do a better job there, but I think you have a lot of people in this hobby that have been there for a while, like Tracy or Chris with Upper Deck. There's just been a lot of guys that have just been in the hobby for a long time, and I just think they're maybe complacent is the word, or they find no reason to do it. They're probably not going to see a big sales bump, or they're not going to see, a certain metric go up, but, that I think that would help collectors, especially collectors that are listening to a podcast like this, or that are out there really in the trenches kind of collecting these cards. This is information they want. This is information that they desire, and that would be very, very, very valuable to them and would help them in their collecting, but we just don't see it. I think they come out with, especially Panini, especially that I know for a fact the employees there are very, very overworked. Very, the deadlines are tight. They're probably not staffed up as much as they probably could be. So it's not. I don't want to, sound like I'm just trashing on these guys and saying they do a bad job, but I think there could be better outreach and stuff like that, because there's a whole community of, when I started this, there were very few independent websites and almost no independent podcasts. Now there's dozens, if not, hundreds of these kind of things, and everybody's got a social media feed and things like that, or a YouTube channel that they could blast this stuff on. So it'd be better now more than ever to really take advantage of the community and leverage that. But I just don't really see it materializing, at least on a regular basis, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to agree that, I think, they're trying. Because when you were saying that, I was thinking that maybe they have so much going on that they can't, they're not staffed to the right levels to go above and beyond, or their daily responsibilities, So, and I guess a company has to take a leap of faith, right, to hire more folks to do social or whatever, and does that really show at the bottom line, right?
Right.
And
I think that's ultimately what it is. I mean, that's what they, you know, and for a good reason. That's what they really care about. But you're probably one of the few NASCAR. I mean, I could almost say with certainty, you're probably the only NASCAR-centric podcast. You probably have one of the very few NASCAR-centric websites. So you know what they should do is they should contact you and say, here's some information, here's this stuff, here's this, even if it's just forwarding you information and emails and things like that, and just disseminating information to you and allow you to disseminate that out to the people that use your website and use your podcast to gather information. Like, to me, that is like just basic stuff, but it doesn't, I can understand like baseball cards is so big anyways, and football cards and things like that, but some of this niche down stuff, they could definitely like outreach to there's not that many people that are actually covering it. And even when you talk about baseball cards, I mean, compared to politics or the new iPhone or whatever, it's not that many people that actually cover this stuff. So you could disseminate it and get them really to, and I have, I've been doing this for a long time, so I have gotten this. It has happened before. I have gotten information from these companies before. I don't really seek it out now, but it just never was consistent enough, and it wasn't, it didn't seem like something they put a lot of effort into. Like you said, probably because it doesn't drive that top line or bottom line number, but I think over a long period of time, it would, and it would certainly make their jobs a lot easier. But it is the industry that we're in, and for better or for worse, it's what we have to deal with, I guess.
Yeah, and Panini's been pretty good the last couple of years with giving me some information, but I sure wish, I was getting forwarded a bunch of the good stuff on stuff, sell sheets and some other stuff for finding out. Like I had was trying to push to find out. You would have thought I would have been maybe the first source to find out that Chronicles was going to be out this year, but I had read it on, I guess it was Go GTS, but I did find out that, they're going to produce Prism this year and then National Treasures. But, yeah, I don't know if anybody else is doing to NASCAR. I would, like I said, be blind carbon copy on everything. So
exactly, and even if it's just they send this information to the distributors and stuff like that. Well, why don't you copy yourself on it too? Because the collectors are actually more likely to find it on a source like yours than, and then it's also much more in depth because GTS sells board games and 5 million other products. Like, a NASCAR set comes across the desk and they're not going to treat it any differently than anything else. Whereas something like Prism coming out or National Treasures, that is going to be treated a lot differently in your hands than some other, a distributor that has millions of products that come across the desk every year. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe in the future we can always hope and dream for these things, but for now it is what it is. And it is about the same when I started, 10, 15 years ago, kind of covering this stuff online. It's about the same. You pretty much find this stuff out on a distributor website and occasionally on a company website, and you kind of are left to disseminate that and make it, make it is what it is on your own. And I think if that changed, you would get even more people enthusiastic about the trading cards, especially like the more niche stuff, like kind of NASCAR, maybe some of the other, soccer and things like that. I think you could definitely cultivate a better following in terms of that stuff.
Yeah, I got into NASCAR trading cards just because it was a market that there wasn't a lot of information in or learning about it, and the prices weren't as high. And I always thought that there was a lot of value there, and if I was going to spend money to collect, it costs less money to get into NASCAR and have a great collection as opposed to, baseball or whatever. And I guess if you collect the older vintage stuff or even the newer high-end stuff, there's nothing over, I'm going to say there's very few over a couple of $1,000s in NASCAR. But in baseball and basketball and stuff, there's thousands or tens of thousands of cards that are over that price. So.
Oh yeah, I mean the third best guy on the team can have $1,000 card, which is just, it's insane, but kind of in a good way, I guess. But NASCAR's a little bit different, and I might be wrong about this. It doesn't seem like that phenom driver. In basketball and baseball and football, there's always like a new phenom every year, and maybe sometimes 2 or 3 of them. Whereas NASCAR, the cadence of like a big superstar, it doesn't seem like that happens every year. You don't, and probably for good reason. You don't have a Jeff Gordon appear every year in NASCAR, or Dale Earnhardt, or any of those kind of like big high awareness, high just world recognized driver every year. Whereas you have someone like Zion Williamson at 19 years old becomes one of the more recognizable athletes in the entire world. Pretty much overnight, and next year it'll probably be another guy. So, I think that's what does keep NASCAR a little bit more affordable, though, too, because you don't have that like big rookie driver every year that has a big card, and it's kind of driving up the price on everything. So that could be kind of an advantage to the collectors out there, because you can. You can collect year after year and not be priced out like you can in baseball and football and basketball, certainly, because there's some, new guy that everybody is trying to collect.
Yeah, with NASCAR, the driver's abilities has a lot to do with it, but it's also the team and the pit crew and the crew chief. So,
right.
To take somebody like Zion, who is, and even watching The Last Dance there with Jordan, how he kind of took the team and was able to elevate it. It's harder in NASCAR, and we had a long period where there weren't any super great breakout, but there's so many young drivers now and talent that it's getting there. But I think really the ace is Hailie Deegan. If she can make it up to the higher levels, to bring the female fan to the sport. And racing is one of the only sports that I know of where men and women can compete on the same field at the same time. There's no WNBA, NBA and
right.
The women's soccer and men's soccer. The women can get out there and kick the guy's butt. So I know the guys don't like it, but I'm sure there's quite a few females that would like to see that. So, and the opportunity to see that.
Oh, I think I've only casually followed her. I bought a couple of her cards. I probably wouldn't be as aware of her as if it wasn't for me following you on Twitter and stuff and seeing you kind of share information about her. So I was buying her cards. It was a couple of weeks ago. There was somebody that had good deals of them. I think I've already sold maybe like 1 or 2 of them. But yeah, I think Danica Patrick kind of paved the way for that. I don't think she had quite the individual success, but she certainly, from a marketing perspective and an awareness perspective, certainly kind of paved that road. But I think, like you said, that's the next step, is for a female driver to be a competitive, maybe not win the cup or anything like that, but like be like be a consistent winner year after year or contender year after year. That would take, I think, the sport to another level. Certainly, and certainly when I see NASCAR, I'm sure a good portion or the majority of the fans are men, but I do see, plenty of women in the crowd as well. It's certainly something that is enjoyed, much like all sports, but NASCAR, it seems like as well, is something that is enjoyed by the female fan as well, and that I think would bring in an even bigger audience in that respect. So, and I think she's young. I think it takes a while. It seems like in NASCAR too, the young guy or girl, like you said, it takes a while to get the pit crew and get the team and the crew chief and then the experience. It seems like, on all the tracks that you have to go to, there is a level of experience that you need. It's not like playing football in one stadium and another. It is, it's more like golf where, different courses provide different challenges, and the longer you get to play on that course or race on that track, the better chances you have over a period of time. So I think, I think that's the other thing that's a little bit different about NASCAR. It is a lot, in my opinion, a lot more like golf, that, it's rare to see someone like a Tiger Woods or maybe even like a Jeff Gordon that just kind of comes on and then just starts winning and just starts crushing it. She could definitely be the next in line, and she's certainly pretty enough and certainly has kind of a presence about her that would definitely take, her popularity and certainly the sport's popularity to a level that it probably hasn't seen in terms of, having a female driver be a contender. I certainly, as just a very casual fan, I certainly, if someone like that was contending week after week, I'd certainly be very likely to tune in more often than I do. That's for sure. So I think that, to me, if I was like a collector or as like a fan of NASCAR, I'd be really excited about that. I'm sure there's, like you said, like the old guys or like some of these guys might not like that, but I think for the casual fan, it would definitely, and Tiger Woods, when he broke onto golf, people don't really remember it, but yeah, he was not very popular with a lot of people because he was fist pumping and he was, doing things nobody had ever seen before. And it wasn't as well liked and beloved as he is now. So, that would be interesting to follow as well, to see that progression.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you know her story now, who her parents are. Her dad is Brian Deacon from the X Games.
Okay.
So she's been running rally trucks and stuff.
Okay.
So I think she has a good nucleus around her, as well as a business presence, and they're not rushing her up the ranks, as you would say, to get that experience. So everything is pointing to trying to do it right. Danica moved over and kind of moved up quickly. IndyCar and NASCAR is totally different, and I saw her at an event and we had a little Q&A, and she was talking about how the handling and the tires are, wider and the car's lighter, and there's more handling as opposed to in NASCAR, and kind of rushing her up. She was in good equipment, but I think, she was using racing to get to the next level, to get to other businesses, while when you talk to Haley or you hear Haley Deegan talk, she wants to be a racer. She, was running rally trucks and stuff like that. She wants to race. She doesn't, want to do anything else but race. So I think she has all the right tools. And, there's a lot of things that have to come together. I was thinking of like football players or baseball players that get drafted or they play and they're in the wrong system and they move to another team and then all of a sudden they flourish. Or you take somebody that's really great from one system and move them over to another system and they don't do as good, right? So there's a lot of chemistry and stuff we don't see as fans. If you look a little deeper, you can. So, but I think she is set up right now. She was with Toyota, but they in this last, I guess it was December, she moved over to Ford. So I think Ford is maybe backing her. Toyota's got so many young drivers and stuff coming up that I think it was a smart move. Maybe Ford put some money behind her and get a good equipment, stuff like that. Like I said, you can be a great driver, but if you're a bad equipment, then so it's kind of like all those stars have to align.
Yes, and I think just being a casual fan of NASCAR, that's like what I've just talking with like guys like you, and I've talked with other people. I have a couple buddies that are like big. They go race, go-karts and stuff on the weekends and stuff. And it's like the equipment, the sponsor, the money has a big impact. Like you've got to have a good support system, and it's all got to kind of come together. You can't necessarily just have this raw talent and just go out there and kick ass. You really have to. You have to have the whole package. And she's got time. Doesn't look very old to me. So she's got plenty of time. And I did not know that she was in the Deegan bloodline there. I definitely remember him and the X Games and things like that. So that definitely, having that kind of experience kind of behind her probably would definitely help. Have perspective on things as well as your career is kind of, your career arc or whatever.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to watch, I guess, her career. We'll see how it goes. But, I guess we can leave it there. I apologize for keeping you for so long. But
no, I loved it.
I could talk to you for another hour or two. I'm sure our fans have fallen asleep.
I know, yeah, for sure. No, I've enjoyed it. Hey, congratulations on a year doing this. I think it's great. Like you said, I've known you. I say I've known you. I've never met you in person. I hope one day can change that. Obviously, if you're ever out here on the West Coast, I would love to meet up with you. And if I ever head out your way, I would definitely be one of the first people I'd let know. So it's been a pleasure following you, and I've enjoyed watching you, get your website going, get your podcast going, and just if you ever need anything, where I'm at.
Well, I appreciate it from me and Jason. Thank you very much.
For sure. Let Jason know. I appreciate it. It was really good talking with you guys.